everyone who's joining us, thank you so much for coming. We here at Los Angeles Public Library like to be nice and generous. I want to give people 3 minutes to show up. That seems sensible. Um, so thank you all for being here. What do I have to say to you? I'm gonna say to you, for starters, I'm just gonna pound the pavement about this. Please join the email list that I got going on. You can find about all the programming I've got happening over at Central Library for music. I've got lots of stuff planned, excited about. What are those things I've got planned? One of them, we're going to be doing uh, Ted Gioa's book, Music is Subversive History. We're going to be reading, spend your summer with me reading a great book. We're going to meet every other Saturday, 1 p.m. downtown Los Angeles or online. We're going to read about 100 pages every 2 weeks. This book is incredible. It's going to surprise you, and it's going to put you onto all kinds of great music from like 5,000 years. So, great one. What else are we doing? We are doing Waiting for Britney Spears with Jeff Weiss. You guys know Jeff Weiss?
I know Jeff Weiss.
Absolutely. Not surprised to hear that. So he wrote a book about early 2000s journalism living in Los Angeles. That's going to be great. That's going to be in person at Central Library. So please join us for that. And we have a great program. This is also going to be at Central Library with Gail Wald and Josh Kuhn. It is about Ella Jenkins, the children's music and civil rights legend. That's going to be on a Tuesday or Wednesday night downtown Los Angeles. So please join us for that. I'm going to put the sign up right in the chat again. Beautiful. So please, hope you can make it. But thanks so much for being here. Just by way of introduction, my name is Chris Taylor. I'm the music librarian at the Art, Music, and Recreation Department for Los Angeles Public Library Central Library. That is on the second floor in downtown Los Angeles. Despite saying in some emails that this wouldn't be recorded, we're going to try to go ahead and record it. I'm only recording myself, our two guests, and it'll get the audio of anyone who pitches a question during the Q&A. The chat is open, but it's not being recorded. I hope that's all right with everyone. I do not know whether it's going to be posted, so I'm going to do my best, but can't guarantee it, so do not go anywhere. But yes, want to give you a heads up with that. What else is going on? Yes, chat is open for use. Feel free to be funny in there, drop a comment. Fire emoji is always good as we move through the conversation. The format for tonight, I'm going to give our guests a quick intro, and then I'm going to let them chat for 40, 45 minutes. Then we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end. And then we'll all be out of here at 8 p.m. Pacific time. So, sounds good. Everyone is in the room who wants to be here. Letting one more person in. All right, fabulous. I am thrilled to introduce S.H. Fernando Jr. He's a writer, producer, chef, and label owner of great renown. He's been on my radar for quite a while with his production for Spectre and his label Word Sound. If you like heavy dubby beats, this stuff is the genuine article. He's also the author of 1994's The New Beats, exploring the music, culture, and attitudes of hip hop. He wrote Rice and Curry, Sri Lankan Home Cooking. He wrote From the Streets of Shaolin, the Wu-Tang Saga, and of course, the reason we're all here tonight, the Chronicles of Doom. We've got a Los Angeles Public Library in all of the formats, in print, audiobook, and ebook, but of course, we love it when you support the author by buying the book from your local bookshop. Interviewing him is going to be Los Angeles' own Peter Agoston. Peter's a DJ, a booking agent, archivist, photographer, and writer. He's appeared in Rolling Stone, Village Voice, many others. He released MF Doom's Special Herbs Volume 1, and he was behind the legendary interview that he did for Elemental magazine. I also encourage you all to check out his podcast, The House List. It's got new and archival mixes and interviews from key figures from hip hop and beyond. Super cool. So with that, I'm just going to hand it right over to SH and Peter. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for the intro. What's up, Pete? Good to see you again.
What's up, man? What's up, Skids?
We've actually been friends for a very long time. I should mention that we met. We knew each other beforehand, but we first met actually in person working on the White Rapper show.
Yes.
Back in what, early 2000s?
Yeah, I think 2006 is when
in New York in the South Bronx, where it all started.
Hmm.
And shout out to gotta give respect to our mutual friend Sasha Jenkins, who passed away recently.
Yes.
Rest in power, Sasha. He was a huge documentarian of the hip hop culture, of just underground culture, graffiti, everything. He wrote books, he made movies. He
Yeah.
was just an all around amazing guy, amazing human being, and it's a big loss for the whole culture. Wouldn't you agree, Pete?
I absolutely, yeah, 100%. I mean, I think you and I are both in the world of documenting this culture and the music, and he was at the pinnacle of doing that himself for since
Yeah.
the late 80s, early 90s. So to work with him and to work with you on the White Rapper Show was a super fun privilege. But it's all part of this bigger puzzle that we all kind of play a part of for many years now, which is basically documenting a culture that's always changing. And yeah, so rest in peace to Sasha. It's a huge loss for our community. Um,
And
and
don't you think, sorry to interrupt, don't you think it's kind of weird that Doom wasn't involved in the White Rapper show? Because it was like all these like really quirky characters, like Cool
uh,
Keith was in there,
oh yeah, and Prince Paul was in
Prince
there,
Paul,
and
like
MC Church was in there. So a lot of his collaborators were definitely in there. But if I'm not mistaken, that was right around the time that he might have been exiled in England initially
true, true,
in
true.
2006 and 7, was around that time, if or at least close to that time. Um, but yeah, he would have fit in perfectly with the ego trip kind of humor and just the kind of colorful nature of that show in general. Because one thing that I know about, at least through my experience and my relationship with Doom, was that he had a great sense of humor and was definitely like a satirist in many ways. So he would have been perfect, even as a consulting producer or something like that, you know.
Right.
But yeah, yeah, for sure. So I'd be curious now that like since you've already done quite a bit of touring in support of your book,
Hmm.
um, looking back at the project, since you've had a little bit of time to breathe with it since the last time you and I met when you were on your book tour here in LA. Um, have you gained any new perspective on this project? Any new insights after having met so many different people and done so many Q&As? Like his work tends to have a sort of timeless quality to it. What's your take now on the project that it's been, since it's come out, it's, not a whole year, but since you've probably finished it, it's been about a year, I would imagine, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, first of all, it was great to do that book tour. I did like 10 cities for like, about 2 weeks. Came out to LA, came out to Bay Area, did San Francisco and Oakland. One thing that just impressed me was that Doom had so many fans, man, and such a diverse fan base, like all ages, all colors, all creeds. It was crazy, the people who came out to these events. And I didn't really appreciate that while I was doing the book, because
Yeah.
I pretty much keep to myself. So like during the book, I thought like I was like one of Doom's only fans. Like, and I think that's the relationship he had to a lot of his fans because
Yeah.
he has a very intimate way of speaking to people, and it's like it feels like he's rapping to you. It's like he's like
Oh yeah.
on the next bar stool at some dive bar, and but what impressed me is that he just touched so many people with his music, and that's great because usually someone like that is marginalized and it's like underground, but he was like an underground dude who made a huge impact, which is a beautiful thing to see. And like I recently went to my 35th college reunion a couple weeks ago, and I'm happy to say that like some of my friends, their kids, I had a friend who's got a 13-year-old kid, and he was like, "Oh, can you sign a book for my daughter? She's a huge Doom fan." And so he's got like a whole new generation of fans coming up. And that's also a beautiful thing to see too, because
Yes.
if anyone really represents a real hip hop, it's Doom. And the fact that he like didn't curse, and he wasn't about like, he wasn't about coke raps and all this shit. He was like a real artist, in my opinion. And it's great to see that he's just getting his proper respect now, even though that he's passed away,
Oh,
basically.
absolutely. I think that it was just born in him from the very beginning. Because like even before this conversation we're having, I went back and I haven't listened to the interview that he and I did in a very long time. But for perspective's sake, for the folks that are tuning into this, many years ago, it's been probably 2 years ago, I interviewed Doom for a magazine cover for this indie hip hop magazine that doesn't exist anymore called Elemental. And I recorded it all on cassette tapes because back then, when we interviewed people, it would be on a landline with a little mic attached to it, and you would tape on cassettes and then flip it over and all that. And so for this podcast, my podcast called The House List that Chris had mentioned, I digitized those tapes and then put the conversation out in its entirety with the blessing of his wife and management and all that stuff. So I went back and listened to that recently and was very much taken aback on many levels because of not only him giving me so much of his time, because it was a few hours over the course of several days, um, and how candid he was in his life. And this was right before the Food album came out, so before a big change in his career as well. So
Right.
as I was asking him, and this is an interview that was meant for print, it wasn't really meant to be rebroadcast. um, and although he also gave me his blessing when I put out the podcast, because the podcast came out 6 years ago, so he was still with us at the time. I just wanted to say that. But as I was asking him how he was inspired while making the Operation Doomsday album, he was kind of remembering how, as a kid, him and his brothers and family would listen to would tape the radio shows in New York City with DJs like the Awesome Two, Special K and Teddy Ted and the Supreme Team, and would basically stay up late at night and record cassettes off the radio like a fan, and just try to listen to that music that you couldn't really buy. And it became kind of the blueprint, these like radio blends of hip hop and R&B of the time, which is like the mid to late 80s, um, would be the kind of blueprint for how he would become a producer later in his career as MF Doom. And it strictly was from basically being a fan of that music, a fan
And
of
the skits too. The
that,
skits.
the
The skits.
skits too,
Yeah.
which comes from the just being a fan of the Marvel universe and all the comic books and all the characters. And I think that even back then, he thought of himself more as a writer of characters, like a Stan Lee, and less of like a rapper producer guy. It just happened to be that's the medium that he was working in too. So he was a fan first and foremost. I think that's why it's like everyone can identify with his lyrics so much too, is just that he was really a regular dude. Like as far as even when we put our record out. So this is the record that I released with him. Is the first of the Special Herbs instrumental series. This with the
Original pressing right there.
original
Nice.
press, indeed, and this is my defunct label, Female Fun, that it was on. But he also painted this portrait too, which is of this actual size.
Wow.
You can
That
believe
is
that.
amazing. Who's got the original artwork? Do you have that? Do you have that?
No, it doesn't exist anymore. It was thrown out in the
Oh my
trash.
God. Oh
It
my
doesn't
God.
exist. And it wasn't even in his possession at the time. It was in someone else's, which will remain nameless for to protect their identity. But it was thrown out in the midst of a big breakup, and one of those things when people split up and all your stuff gets like mixed up and it was thrown out. So this really is the only version of it. I have a high res scan of it, but the original painting is lost to time, sadly. But as you can see, it's quite detail oriented, and he painted it with the little brush and all that. So he was more
That's
than just
wild.
a hip hop artist, but that's for sure. Um,
And I got to say that I used that interview for the book, and that's one of the most intimate interviews because, like, as you're interviewing him, you can hear he's holding his little baby, like one of his kids was just born, and he even takes a break in the interview to like, go feed his kid or something. She's like a baby,
yeah,
and like that's amazing that you had that type of relationship with him because he was a very he kept a very closed circle of people around him, and it was
yes,
and in researching the book it was very hard to penetrate that circle. A lot of those people didn't want to talk to me, but I somehow found a way around it. But that if anyone really wants to hear Doom at his most relaxed, they should get on SoundCloud and listen to that houseless interview because that's
yeah. Thank you.
amazing. And kudos to you for doing it because it's like, wow, that's a real treasure for the Doom archive. And I think more people should know about that. And
Yeah,
it's
it
just
only
like
on
Doom
SoundCloud
being a
now.
regular dude, like you said, just like
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, in the making of those two incredibly seminal albums, I mean, especially the songs that led up to Operation Doomsday and like Dead Bent and Hey and like those initial singles that would eventually come out on Fondle 'Em, like leading up to the album, he was homeless and he was broke. And like he said it enough in that interview too. He would be the first one to admit it. So, when you have limited means as an artist, you really have to scrape together whatever you can to make your music, especially for someone like him, where it is really a big part of his psyche. And this is coming some years after the tragic death of his brother, who was also his partner in his group KMD, and the disillusionment of their the record deal that they had with Elektra. So this is a guy that experienced like a bunch of trauma and also basically had nowhere to live or go, and wound up back in Freeport, Long Island, where they grew up, and and started making music, which has now become this timeless thing that, like, 13-year-olds know about, which
right.
is, you know,
But
absolutely mind-boggling.
but that was really, I think, what saved him was the music, really, because he like you said, he lost his deal, he lost his brother, he was in deep depression, he dropped off the radar for several years, but he never stopped making music, was one thing I found out. He always had like at least some equipment, and I
Yeah,
think that focus of being able to create your art that really kept his sanity during that time. And
yeah,
that's how he was able to stack up so much stuff.
yeah,
Because like between 2000 and 2005, you see his very prolific era, right? When he released like 8 different albums on 8 different independent labels. And
yeah.
people were like, where is this stuff coming from? He had that stuff in the vaults. He had stacks of that stuff. And
Oh yeah,
I even talked to my man Kev Hutch, who was in the CM mob, which was the crew, the Uptown crew that Curious George and them were in. And then like Doom was kind of like an affiliate member. And like it's in the book. Like Kev Hutch used to go to his house, when he still had an apartment in Manhattan, and they would like do mushrooms and listen to Doom beats for like 10 hours, like stay up all night and listen to beats. So he never stopped working. He never stopped working.
um,
That's a mark of a real artist. He's not just making records to make an album. This is what he does.
yeah, yeah.
So
Oh yeah. I mean, and even after the records from the later 90s came out, it's not like he suddenly was paid either. It really took like another 10 years, I feel like,
Right.
from the release of the Hey Dead Bent 12-inch to even well after Operation Doomsday. He was still like very much an underground starving artist in many ways, and still having to go, like, a lot of that material was recorded at other people's studios. So there was a group in Washington, D.C. that he would go record with. There were guys in Atlanta that he would go record with, and as well as all over New York City. And that's how we got the music that is at least that debut album, so that it would propel him in a way to do all these collabs, like especially like 2005, 6. So by the time the Food album was coming out, like he was already kind of like taking a new form almost. I did want to share another thing I have too. This was the copy of the Food album that he sent me before it came out. I don't know if we can even see this with the glare, but as you can see, his penmanship was always on point. So,
He wrote that?
oh yeah, this is his
Oh, wow.
handwriting, yeah, for sure. MF Doom, Metal Faiths, Doom, because here are the two. These are the two demos of the special herbs that he also. I mean, sadly, it's in reverse because of Zoom. But so this is the first version he had sent me. This is the rough demo version, and then when we pressed up the first copy, which became the LP, this is the other version that he sent me.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I have another one because we did it one more after that, Special Herbs 3. This is also his handwriting and the original master when masters were on CDRs. Um,
And that's another way that he was ahead of the game, doing just instrumental beats, like long before like the whole lo-fi beats thing became vogue. He was doing that. When did you start that? 2001, 2000?
well, yeah, I mean, I have the one sheet for the original pressing of Special Herbs, so it was, um, yeah, I mean, again, this is in reverse, but this is the one sheet that we would send out to record stores and to distributors, and the street date back then, the street date was December 18th of 2000. Obviously, it's like putting a record that out that's like the last week of the year basically for retail. So it really came out in 2001, but the street date was it did make it in at your local record store by the holidays, December 18th of 2000, which is crazy.
That was strictly vinyl when it came out, right? Like
Yeah,
a
it did
CD
a thousand
came out
copies.
later. Right.
I did two pressings. One was they were both 1,000 copies each,
Okay.
and the idea too was that it was when I had the opportunity to kind of pitch him the idea that I had, it was originally supposed to be an instrumental album to Operation Doomsday. And he countered me, and this was all on the telephone because he wasn't like an email guy anyway. And we had a mutual friend that connected us because I pitched them on the idea. And he was like, what would be dope is if we did instead of that. And this is the genius of him too, just taking that idea and flipping it and making it way cooler. He was like, we should just do a whole series of records of I got all types of beats. And I don't think he even thought about it at that point. But because those instrumentals were so DJ friendly, because they're basically taking super familiar samples and flipping them, the Sade, the BDP, just like, you can't go wrong, like taking Cool G Rap and then putting it over like Steely Dan and shit. It's just like they're no-brainer beats,
That's
you know?
that's another thing I love about him. He didn't even give a fuck about clearing samples or anything like that.
Nah.
It's totally hip hop. It's like
Yeah.
he was like, this stuff is so underground anyway. They're not going to find me. And
Yeah.
it's actually surprising that like when he got bigger, that people didn't come after him. Because like,
Yeah.
and now we've gotten to a point where it's like, at a certain point, even your album cover, that's a straight ripoff from a Marvel comic,
Oh, yeah.
frame of a Marvel comic. And he was getting cease and desist letters from Marvel to stop using their stuff. And now what happened recently? Marvel comes out with the comic, which is a homage to Doom, you know?
Amazing. That's so
It's
crazy.
a full 360. So
Yeah.
it's like, this is a guy who made the mainstream come to him. And you got to love that. You got to
Yeah.
love that about him because, like, so many people are out there, on social media using all these channels to promote their shit. And that's what I love about Doom. He just created this whole mystique around him and he made people come to him. And that's why he's such a special artist, and the whole mask thing, no one had ever done that. I go into that in the book a bit. Like, he was really eyeing Ghostface when Ghost came out,
Yeah.
stocking cap, and he was like, he wasn't gonna go that route till Ghost took the stocking cap off, and he was like, all
Right.
right, now I'm gonna put the mask on. So
Yeah.
it's like he was a dude who respected hip hop. It's like, because back then biting
No.
was not acceptable at all. It's like
Well, one
now,
of his first
now
shows.
biting it's all about biting. It's like when you come out with a song and like everyone's jumping on that type of thing. It's like it's almost like formulaic in a way, but Doom like really respected that, and yeah,
Yeah, truly. I mean, one of the last like truly original voices in the genre. I mean, but I will say this: I do remember one of his first live shows, which was at SOB's in New York City, um, a music venue that's in Lower Manhattan.
is it
He
still around? Is
It's
SOB
still
still
around. Yeah, Sounds of
okay?
Brazil. He came out with the stocking on and a cowboy hat, and like he had a whole in a bandana over his face before the mask existed.
Right.
So it wasn't until, and that mask has had many different iterations too, you know. Just as a reference to this was the magazine cover of this was the magazine that went with that interview that I'm talking about. And this particular version of the mask, which I think wasn't there was like maybe two more after this one. But as you can see, even this
Got
has
the
like
rust on it.
a lot of grit and grime on it from him
That was
basically
before he chromed it out, right?
yeah, before he chromed it out. And it was uh it was just like
Oh yeah, it's got the rust and everything.
got the rust from a lot of Heineken bottles
I'm
and
amazed that he just sent them the mask to take the photo shoot. That's
mail.
pretty.
Yeah, I mean he physically put this mask in the mail to the magazine, and the photographer just shot it. And I have a bunch of other pictures that weren't used from this session too, where they just it was almost like a product shoot.
Right.
Um, And also, a lot of people know as an additional kind of aside, when Count Bass D did his song with Doom for the Food album, um, he mailed him an MPC sampler to work on because he didn't have any equipment at the time. So he mailed him the sampler from
Get
what
out
I
of
was
here.
told by I think from Count. So
Wait. Doom mailed Count his MPC?
No, I
The
think
other
it
way
was the
around.
other way around. I think Count shipped him one, and then they finished the beat and he shipped it back to him.
Okay.
And I can fact check that for later reference if anyone wants to.
Because you have an interview with Count on the house list
I do.
too.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, he was one of the guys who didn't want to talk either. So I'm sure, but I did find out some stuff peripherally about that, like about the first time he met Doom and stuff. It's funny, like when you're doing a book like this, you know, I mean, I can totally respect it. Like Doom was a low key character, and I guess like the people who were very close to him kind of respected that about him and didn't really want to divulge too much information about him.
yeah, of course, absolutely. I mean, and
But
you have to respect that. So
yeah, but at the same time, I think as fans, like it's different for you because you knew him. But as fans, we want to find out about him. It's like, and luckily I was able to talk to several people who were very forthcoming, like his younger brother Dimbaza, who spent a lot of time with Doom, especially during the time that he was kind of ass out. And, he wasn't really homeless, but he was like, in a bad situation. and living in New York. And he did actually have he had two different apartments in Manhattan, and then when the money ran out, he ended up back at his dad's crib in Freeport.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an interesting time because you don't really get you don't really get a second chance in the music industry, especially when you're on a major label and shit. Like how many one-hit wonders are there in the music industry, man? And it's like
I mean, especially in hip hop, which
yeah,
is
exactly, exactly. Like we know so many
the
people who,
greatest.
I mean, even like a dude like Craig Mack, who was like a big star at one point. I don't know if people remember Craig Mack. You know who I'm talking. You know Craig Mack, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I know correct.
I mean, the first time I met Craig Mack was on the EPMD Hit Squad tour in 1992. Eric and Paris let me ride on the bus with them, and Mac was the guy who was like carrying people's luggage, but he
Yeah.
was always like writing rhymes. And then like the next minute I know he blew up, and then after he's on Bad, he was like the first Bad Boy artist,
He was, yeah,
and then
before.
he just got totally replaced by Biggie.
Yeah.
Like Biggie came in and outshined him on the remix. So it's like you got so many people like that in hip hop.
Yeah.
So for Doom to actually be gone for like several years and like reinvent himself, I don't think people really appreciate how special that is and how real difficult that is, you know?
Yeah, it's practically impossible in
It's
hip hop.
impossible. And the fact that he came back on independent labels I love that too, because it's like he was like, fuck these majors.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
had my bad experiences with them. And he was able to just like get on all these independent labels, except good old Word Sound, of course. I got to him a little too late, but I would have loved to have worked with Doom.
He would have fit in naturally with a lot of the stuff that you're doing at the
Of
time.
course, of course. And but I'm, just as a underground champion, a champion of the underground, I have so much respect for like what he did and how he was able to do it. So it's just like, that's why, that's like one of the reasons I wrote the book, so
I think it's important to note too that when he came back out on those, there was basically three 12 inches that Bobito Garcia released on Fondulum. So
right.
before Operation Doomsday as an album, which was the first real album that came out on the label, more or less, that had artwork. So the thing is with Fondulum, which was at the time a very influential, like underground New York hip hop record label. And Bobito was a very influential DJ and radio host at the time, with Stretch Armstrong, broke a lot of artists of that era. So their whole mantra basically was there was no promotion. They didn't promote their records, and they didn't give away records for free. They didn't do press, and none of the singles had artwork. Like I could pull some from the stacks over there.
Yeah, it was mostly white labels. Yeah.
Basically, white labels with
All those singles were white labels, except for Operation Doomsday. Actually, that was the first Fondulum record with artwork,
it
I believe.
was, it was,
Yeah.
which was a big deal. I remember even back then, that was like kind of like, oh wow, they're like starting to do artwork. Like things have changed, in the
Right.
underground. But that just goes to show you too that it was like, okay, like if you were like really, really in the know, you kind of picked up on who that was, who MF Doom was, that he was Zevlov X and he was from KMD. But to a lot of people, it was like an introduction to almost like a new artist entirely if they just weren't following it that closely. So without any context, it allowed the listener back in '97 when these records were coming out to learn about him like a totally new artist without there was no mask and there was no way to market and promote this mystique. It really was just like this strictly the music, which was only on vinyl and you couldn't stream any music at that era whatsoever. So I think that set him up in a way where he could rise through the kind of early indie hip hop 12-inch era and just like be one of the biggest success stories. I mean,
Right.
obviously the biggest, really. I mean, maybe you've got LP could be a decent example too because of Run the Jewels success.
Cool Keith is another
Cool
one.
Keith, of course. And listening, just to speak to that really quickly too, listening to that interview with Doom, it was him listen, Bobito playing the Cenobites record, which was like an EP that came out on Fondle, and it was the first release on the thing, on the label. He told me, Doom told me that he was like, okay, I love Ultramagnetic. We used to rock to Cool Keith's original group, Ultramagnetic MCs, all the the in the
Right.
80s. If he's doing
And
shit like
Cool Keith
this,
was in Cenobites with
yes, with Godfather Don.
Godfather Don, right?
And he's like, if these guys are doing this, then you guys are gonna love the shit that I'm on right now. And like I think that inspired him to just keep taking chances with the music that he was making back in 96, 97, 98. And
And you know, like Prince Paul, like I put out Psychoanalysis on Word Sound in
yeah,
'96. That was like also that was right around the time of Dr. Octagon when Cool Keith did
oh
Dr. Octagon. So it's like these older artists were kind of reinventing themselves and coming back. And I think Doom saw that,
yeah,
you know, and it's kind of funny because a couple years after that, Prince Paul is the guy who told me that MF Doom was Zevlov X. I don't think I would have ever known it. He had a whole different style. He
yeah,
had a completely different rhyme style, and his voice had changed too. Because if
oh,
you listen to KMD, Zevlov X has got a really high pitched voice.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Almost like a whiny voice, and he raps really fast. And like I think on Black Bastards, which is the second KMD album, which never came out when it was supposed to, I got an advanced cassette like the week before it dropped. And I remember at the source, everyone was like amped for that album. You know what I'm saying? It's like everyone was amped for that Black Bastards album because it was a real different album from
Mr.
Mr.
Hood.
Hood.
Yeah,
And they were coming back really kind of hard this time, him and Sub Rock. And that's when it all went south for them. You know, it's like for
yeah.
that artwork, which is incredible because like now you wouldn't even blink an eye at that artwork, right?
I know.
It was basically like little black Sambo being hung in the game of Hangman. And it's pretty obvious that, you know, Doom explained it that he was hanging a stereotype. There you go.
Yeah,
Because black people were thought of as like this little black Sambo type character with black big lips and shit like that. Doom was basically hanging that stereotype, you know?
exactly.
But
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing that like some writers took offense at that. And it was also around the time of Ice-T Cop Killer, because so there was a lot of
yeah.
censorship on.
And see
But
Dolores Tucker and all that. It's just like
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was
it's
a whole different time. So it's like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And they were Electra was owned by Warner Brothers, if I'm not mistaken, or Warner Electra
right.
Atlantic.
Warner, WEA, Warner Electra
Yeah.
Atlantic. Yeah, it was
So
like,
under that pressure, and like there was just the industry was very different at that time, where hip hop was still marginalized by I think corporate A&Rs too,
right.
that had influence over um, the record industry at large. You know, also wanted to show Black Bastards 2 was very much a bootlegged record because not many people, it never came out at the time. So that cassette that you're talking about, this is one of my prized possessions because I got this probably in 97 too. It's just a white label LP of it. Um, and but it was people started bootlegging that promo cassette early. And
Right. Because it was dope. It was dope. But we should mention that it did eventually
absolutely.
come out on Subverse, which was to pick up the story after Fondle released. Yeah, there it is. After
Originally
Fondle
Subverse was
released, that's the Subverse version.
yeah. Although I
After Fondle released Doomsday, Subverse picked him up and re-released Operation Doomsday, and Doom was like, "Well, I got Black Bastards too. You want to take that?" And they took it. And you know, Subverse was another independent label, and that was run by Fiona Bloom, who was a well-known publicist, and also Big Juss. And the investor was Peter Lupoff. who was a Wall Street guy. They're all interviewed in the book. So that's an interesting story about how all that came about. But when he came out in 2001 with the Operation Doomsday and the Black Bastards, that really put him back on the map.
Yeah.
And he had a story. There was like a real compelling story then at the
Yeah.
time too,
The
right?
press was really drawn to it.
Yeah.
In a big way back then. I think I'm so grateful that we had already established a relationship, Doom and I, because of putting out Special Herbs, that I was able to do that interview a couple years after Special Herbs had come out. Like we were already in a place where he had already blown up, so we weren't going to do no more records. Like I didn't have enough money to do records with him anymore. So like, but he was generous enough to be like, yeah, let's do that interview, man. I'm down. So that's what the next collaboration in a way was, this interview that became what the audio was. And that was again just to catch that before the Food album and before Mad Villain. And those two records, Mad Villain and the Food album, just brought him to a level where after that it was like, he was in a completely different stratosphere as an artist, and I think all those collaborations with so many underground artists that were kind of leading up to that, because there's so many 12 inches with different people, from Vast Air to you name it, a million motherfuckers all over the place. So, and he was just like that type of dude too. He was so down to collab with people, and
Right.
was always
Because
very,
because also he was hungry too. He wasn't making a lot of money at the time. That's
no,
why he did so many albums. Like we got to mention King Ghidorah too. That was done for
incredible. Yeah, on Lex
Big
Records.
Dada in England.
Yeah,
That's why Doom has such a diverse fan base. Because like some people know him from, like most people know him from Mad Villainy or
yeah,
Food. Some people know him from King Ghidorah. Some people know him from Victor Vaughn.
sure.
Some people know him from the Special Herbs. Some people know him from the Mouse and the Mask, which was
Yeah,
another
yeah,
huge album.
yeah,
It was put out by Epitaph of all people, like
yeah.
a punk label from LA, you know? And
Hmm.
that was done in collaboration with the Adult Swim, obviously, but that was the first time that he saw some real money for an album because he got a nice advance for that, and that album actually sold like 350,000 copies,
Amazing.
which was a
A
lot
lot of
of
records.
time. Me
Yeah,
and you running independent labels, we both know how much you're
yeah,
making if you're selling that kind of money. Because like I was making a profit if I sold 5,000 copies. That was a good
yeah.
release for me.
Oh
So
yeah,
so if you're selling 350,000, that's a damn good release. So Doom was seeing money then, and then eventually he signed to Lex, which was another English label, but Lex had a deal with EMI, so they had money. So Doom was toward the Lex stage. He was actually seeing good money. He was seeing like he was getting like six-figure deals for records, and he was seeing good money at the time, which he totally deserved, of course.
absolutely. Yeah, it's hard
Um,
to make good money in hip hop, especially from that era. That
right.
now it seems, or at least maybe pre-pandemic, or like, but it was a lot of newer artists make a lot more money a lot faster.
Oh
Um,
yeah, now it's like ridiculous. I mean, look at like the Clips or something like that.
right.
It's like they had to. I heard that they had to pay like seven figures to get released off their deal from Def Jam.
Wow.
And now they got that. Now they got "So Be It" out. That have you heard that banging single?
Yeah,
"So Be It." I mean, that's crazy. So it's like yeah, it's a whole different level for artists like that who are in the spotlight and who like a lot of people know about.
well, you
So
have to give Doom credit too, because it's like he is coming from an era where the MF Doom music first was only sold on records, only on vinyl,
right,
and that's it.
right.
And the in online distribution in 1998 to 2001, 2, 3 was exceptionally limited, plus there was no streaming services. YouTube didn't start till 2005, and people
Right.
really, iPods didn't come out for another 3 or 4 years after that. So you had to go physically buy a CD um, like my commercial version of Special Herbs 3, like at a shop or maybe be bought
Right.
online, and or a record, and that sound scan would be like quantify your value, you know. So this is a guy that was moving units like on a physical level. And honestly, like I'm sure that Mad Villain and the Food album and among probably Born Like This, among many others, are still selling physical copies to this day because of his
Oh, hell yeah. And
uh,
like and the good thing is that, Jasmine, Doom's wife, is very business minded, and they started Metal Face Records, obviously. So I think, like, if you check out the Gastrol's website, which is their website, they're selling all that stuff, and they're selling tons of merch, so
yeah,
respect to Jasmine for carrying that on, and
absolutely.
making that happen, because Doom's got 4 kids. Um, he lost one child, he lost Malachi, but he's got to provide for his kids, and he's doing it even from the other side right now. So that's,
Yeah, it was a beautiful thing. Yeah.
yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it's amazing to think, like, like we kind of have perspective on things, but like, if you look at if you look at hip hop today, it's so easy to go viral, and
Right.
you have all these avenues of promotion, and it's like Doom didn't have that, but he was very savvy about how he used promotion. And in the book, I say, he kind of shot himself in the foot a lot of times. He could have had a lot more opportunities, but he was all about, like, pulling off a heist type thing, like, and like getting over on people. And you can kind of understand that mentality, because when you've been used and abused by a major label like he was, it's like there's no rules to anything, man. Like, that's
Yeah,
why
no
that's why he did the
guarantee.
whole Doombot thing,
Yeah,
I don't
sure.
I don't fault him for doing the Doombot thing either, because the way he justified it was as like an art project, like performance art. Because he was
Yeah,
like, yo, if people, I'm an actor, like, every time there's a Batman movie, it's a different actor playing Batman, right? So I
yeah.
can hand the mask to anyone and let them go do a show. I thought that was a great justification for the Doombots. You know what I mean?
Another anomaly in the genre because no one else has ever gotten away with something
Exactly.
like, to that degree. I know that we have. It looks like we're gonna have like a hard out at 8-ish. So should
Oh,
we
yeah,
take
yeah. So,
any
oh man,
questions?
I totally lost track of time. We've been having such a good
Oh yeah,
conversation.
I keep going
Let's
if we.
no, let's open it up for questions, because I'm sure there's some people who want to know some
Yeah,
things.
anything
So,
that would be cool. I don't
Yeah,
know how to do that.
go
Chris,
ahead and yeah, I'm here. Go ahead and throw something in the chat, or go ahead and unmute yourself so you all know how to use Zoom. Um, and I definitely have a question if no one's got one ready.
why don't you start it off?
For sure. Yeah. So I guess you talked a little bit about his sampling, and I was just wondering, can you talk a little bit about him as like a listener, as like a hip hop fan, as a music fan?
From what I gathered in our conversations, and based off of I think he was a child of, okay, so here's like an anecdotal story. So basically when he was a little kid, him and his brothers had a babysitter during the day or after school in Long Island. And the babysitter had her own children too that were a little older than him, and they had turntables set up in the basement. And they would sit at the top of the stairs and look down at these older kids that were basically playing records in the basement and funk soul records of the era. So when he asked to, or they offered for him to get on and mess around with the turntables, which any kid back then, it's like, if you see someone DJing and you have the opportunity to kind of mess around, that's a really big deal. So um, I remember him telling me that Tramp, Otis Redding Tramp was one of the records that he would mess with, which is a seminal break in hip hop, a drum break that's been sampled over and over and over, which you see kind of as a reoccurring theme with at least MF Doom's production, Metal Fingers production, where I think it's a lot of popular, beloved breaks from funk and R&B records of the 70s and 80s mixed with his other childhood influence, which we had mentioned too, which is uh, cartoons and comics. So he took a lot of his childhood with him along that journey of inspiration as far as a producer. Like I wouldn't compare him to like a Pete Rock or DJ Premier or any of the usual aforementioned like influential hip hop producers because his influence kind of probably came from a completely different zone as like a kid. That's my impression of it. I don't know. In your interviews, Skiz, would you say, did you pick up on anything?
Well, there's a story I put in the book about how Little Cy was like sampling a record, and he was just like looking for a sample and just like moving the turntable, moving the needle through the grooves. And Doom was like, "Yo, yo, yo, you gotta listen to the record, man. Just play the whole thing through. Just smoke a blunt, listen to it." I think Doom was a real music lover. He appreciated music. So for him, it was not about just like listening to find a sample. He listened to the whole song. A lot of producers just skip through it, go to the intro, go to the break part. I think Doom was like one of those dudes who really appreciated music, especially like jazz and stuff like that. And like going off what you said, as far as sampling, he wanted to find those sources that no one else had. So obviously no one was really mining the cartoons. No one was mining like the Godzilla movies. No one, I mean, he even sampled like a BET, the intro to a BET jazz show, which he
Yeah,
probably saw on late night. He was like, man, no one's going to sample this. Let me
yeah,
get that. So he would tape a lot of stuff off of TV onto video and sample that. And that's how he sampled a lot of the cartoons too. He had a
yeah,
huge VHS collection of stuff. So,
exactly. And that takes a lot of patience, a lot of
yeah.
time, concentration. Um, yeah.
Thank you, thank you. There's a question in the chat. Uh, it's from Lewis. Were there any plans to collaborate with people like Cool Keith, Del the Funky Homo Sapien, Deltron, or anyone else in that vein?
Well,
Um,
he did do a track with Cool Keith on the Victor Vaughn 2 album, the VV2 album, which kind of got slept on. It's called Doper Skiller. Um, it came out on a label called Insomniac,
yeah,
uh, which is a
Miami.
small, yeah, out of Florida. And it's a weird album because it's only like 35 minutes long. I didn't really cover it much in the book, but I'm actually doing a whole podcast on it with some people tomorrow, as a matter of
On the
fact.
Victor Von 2 album?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Oh,
I
Believe it
whoa.
or not, like
I
they
gotta hear
wanted
that.
they wanted to focus on that. But Dell, he was old
Oh,
friends with.
cool. Yeah, and they were
I'm
label
sure he
mates.
must have had some type of collaboration with Dell back in the day. We should ask Dell that because like Dell has a lot of interesting stories about Doom from back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, they were definitely up at WKCR and Stretch and Bobbito together. I know that Dell and Curious George, who was a frequent collaborator of Doom's, they had a song together on Dell's second album. Um, I know that there was something. I have no doubt that there was probably conversations that were had. Off the top, I can't think of an actual joint that they did, but I could be wrong myself.
Right.
Probably got time for one more question. Anyone got one? I got one. Since this is Los Angeles, can you talk a little bit about his time in Los Angeles? What he thought
Yeah.
of the city, and what he
Really
got done
love
here?
that. Oh man, he was in LA so much. First for the Mad Villainy album, right? Like he stayed out at Peanut Butter Wolf's spot out there. They initially recorded the album there in like a couple weeks, and then when after the album was leaked on the internet, Doom insisted on re-recording all his vocals. So they came back there and did it with Mad Lib. I know for a fact also that who was that guy? there was a producer from TV on the radio that he did some stuff
Dave
with
Sidak.
when he was living with he was living right next to Danger Mouse out there.
Okay.
Danger
Yeah.
Mouse had a spot in like Laurel Canyon or something like that. Oh, it was Dave Sitek from
Yeah,
TV
yeah,
on the
that's
radio. They all three lived in the same area and they collaborate. I think Doom really loved LA. And of course,
yeah.
Kanye, he knew Kanye out there. I think Doom really liked the vibe out in LA. It was just a very laid back vibe and sunny and shit like that. What do you think, Pete?
I know that yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially like when we were working together on Special Herbs, I was living in Northern California. I was in college, so and I remember him too. I helped open a record store up there, and he's like, "Man, you got to get me out there. I'll do an in-store in the record store," which is one of my biggest regrets ever is not flying him out to do that because he offered. But I think he liked it. He loved to smoke weed, and at that time, like weed was a lot more difficult to get good weed on the East Coast. So coming out here was quite a treat. Um, I know he also performed here quite a bit. He headlined a pretty big show at the El Rey around the release of Mad Villain or the Food album, and he came back a couple more times. I think he did. He might have done House of Blues as well on Sunset. That's no longer there, or the Knitting Factory that on Sunset that's no longer there. Um, but yeah, I mean, as an East Coaster, yeah, he loved coming to LA, and I mean, he
He
made.
even, he even did some of Born Like This out there.
I'm sure. Yeah,
Because actually, Ta-Nehisi Coates did an article on him for the New Yorker,
yeah.
and when he interviewed him, he was working on Born Like This out in L.A.
Out here. I
So
mean,
he,
I will say this too, like his influence on Stone's Throw Records as a label, which is now an LA label. I mean, it started in the Bay Area, but I think the contributions of Mad Villain to the overall identity and brand of Stone's Throw cannot be discounted. So, and that then has such a like trickle down effect on LA artists of the next generation, like Earl Sweatshirt and Tyler and many, 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 many other people. And that is because of Doom coming to LA to record this music with Madlib, obviously. But I think his stamp on the city has like it's still heard in even the Alchemist production. So yeah, I think his influence
and
is
that whole experimental vibe, it's like
yeah.
that's Doomed, like the whole low end theory.
Yeah.
Shit, that's Doom's vibe. There's a question: was Live from the Planet X? Was recorded at El Rey? You think?
No, to my knowledge, Live from the Planet X was recorded at the DNA Lounge in San Francisco.
Okay, all
I
right.
could I would have to fact check
I
that, but
have that down. I have that CD downstairs, but I don't know exactly
yeah,
what.
I'm sure there. So for people that don't know, there was a live album that was released on Nature Sounds like in the early 2000s called Live from Planet X, and I'm fairly certain that it was recorded at the
Yeah.
DNA Lounge, which is a defunct music venue in San Francisco. He played a lot in the Bay Area
They're
too.
still going. There's DNA Lounge is still going.
Oh, it is? All right, cool.
It is. It is.
DNA Lounge.
Great spot in the Bay Area.
I saw him perform at Slim's in 2002 as well. Um, very great performance.
Yeah, right by there. Um, I said there'd only be one more question, but there's a great question from Music Archivists. It's a library event, so I got to make some room. I work with music archivists, and an issue I come across often for artists active post 1997 is difficulty in accessing digital masters for albums. Are you aware of how these are preserved for remastering purposes?
In what wait, what release are you talking about? What I was showing earlier?
Post 1997 releases is difficult accessing for.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to have held on to it physically and preserved it because a lot of this stuff deteriorates. I mean, I will say this, like, so these are the backs of the original Special Herbs Masters. Now you can see some wear and tear there on this one and a little bit on this, but they've been, ripped multiple times, but yeah, these things just they CDs will fall apart, especially if you beat them up. So now I can't speak towards other people's releases, and I know that Doom recorded on DATs with the earliest stuff that was on Operation Doomsday. So I don't think he was using CDs at all. It was all on a digital audio tape. So that's an even more obsolete medium. But I know that there's many Doom CDs that are masters that exist in the world because he mailed those beats to people often and album masters. So there's a lot out there. Whether you'll ever see them, that remains to be seen. But that was his main format for probably the majority of the material that he released, I would imagine. Um, hopefully
Yeah,
that.
'cause the DATs used to be big because I have a lot of DATs too, and now like, who's got even got a DAT player?
I don't even know. I don't.
You know
You
what
would
I
have
mean?
to.
It's like,
I
but
mean,
luckily a lot of this stuff is on the internet because even the VV2 album, I found it on the internet at the Internet Archive.
yeah.
So that stuff is preserved, which is good.
Yeah, finding quality audio of some of the yeah, I mean now his music has largely been re-released multiple times. So yeah, I think you probably have the best possible version. And who knows, some of these things, it's just second nature to hip hop where things just get lost over the course of time. Um
Right.
I lug a lot of stuff with me, but you know, after a while, you got to have a digital backup because you never know what could happen, So
I like to have a physical backup, man, because
I
like,
like both. Yeah, yeah, both
if
is
there's a
great.
huge EMP attack and all the digital shit is obsolete?
Yeah,
I'd rather
absolutely.
have a vinyl or a cassette.
Oh yeah,
I'm maybe I'm too old school, but like, I still have a cassette deck. I mean, cassettes are kind of come made a comeback,
I agree.
as much as vinyl did. People still
Absolutely.
put
They're a lot
out
cheaper to
cassettes.
make. They're a lot cheaper to make and a lot cheaper to ship.
Yeah.
Let's leave it there. Thank you both so much. Really appreciate it. Great to hear from you both. Thank you everyone for showing up. I did put in the incorrect sign up for the mailing list link, so I'm going to put the correct one in now. Get the book. The book's great. Great read. So much. It's going to put you on a tons of good music. We've got the library. Uh, buy it from a shop. Any final words from
Paperback
either of you? Oh, go
paperback is
ahead.
coming out in October for Chronicles of
Beautiful.
DOOM. So.
Dope, dope, dope.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of it too. If anyone is interested in listening to the archival interview that I did with MF Doom, it was recorded in 2002 or 2003. It now only exists, I think, on SoundCloud. So if you go to the House List podcast on SoundCloud, if you'd like to listen to it, it's an hour and a half. It was recorded all on cassette. It was never intended to be broadcast, but with his permission, for the 100th episode of the podcast, he was down, and I edited it with a Grammy award-winning music producer too, and we turned it into something really cool. It has all the warbles of a cassette and lots of vibe to it, but it's if you haven't listened to it and you are a fan of Doom, I strongly encourage it. Skiz used portions of it in the book, and it helps kind of fill in the blanks too here and there for any
Yeah,
questions.
and also just for the house list, you got like hundreds of people there. I'm interviewed on there.
Oh
You
yeah,
got Count Bass D on there. You got Blake Latham who did the artwork for
yeah,
Operation Doomsday.
Theo,
So there's
yeah,
a lot of
Scott.
good Keo, yeah, Keo. So there's a lot of good interviews in
Oh,
in
yeah.
that in
Prince
that
Paul.
album.
Yeah, if you're a fan of MF Doom, the whole well, there's a big world of artists that he worked with. Prince Paul, I did an episode with. Paul Barman is on it, who they'd have a very famous, couple songs, but Hot Guacamole is their joint, and he produced his 12-inch for Paul as well. So yeah, if you want to do a deep dive on the MF Doom world,
Universe, yeah.
yeah, there
I
is.
put out the first Paul Barman too.
Yes, you did. Yes,
Very
you
stimulating.
very stimulating. Yeah, with Prince Paul produced the whole thing.
Yep.
That was
And we put out Prince Paul Psychoanalysis back in '96.
such a
So
historic record. I mean, in that I feel like just to cap it off, I know we're running out of time, but Dr. Octagon's Psychoanalysis and MF Doom, like that, and like of course there's other records around that era, but that just ushered in this for New York at least, and that region of music at the time, this like new wave of like guys that came out in the 80s and early 90s and that
reinvented themselves.
reinvented themselves in a
Yeah.
way that we've never really seen since with hip hop, because it's not a welcoming art form for that type of thing. So, and Doom, rest in peace. I mean, he's such a incredible example of the potential that an artist can have, just with sheer determination alone, So, what an incredible guy. I'm so glad that your book exists. We have something to read about that's long form. So yeah, shout out to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for everyone who came in to listen. Thanks to Chris for setting it up. And LA stands strong. All
Yeah.
right. We got you.
Beautiful.
We got you, LA.
Hell yeah.
I'm talking about.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you guys. Peace.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you both. That was
Yeah,
excellent.
appreciate it.